The icy rush of the Gila River swallowed Ayana whole, its waters clawing at her like the ghosts of forgotten ancestors. Paralyzed from the waist down since the fever that stole her legs as a child, she could do nothing but flail her arms in futile defiance, her long black hair fanning out like raven wings against the current. The sun hung low over the Arizona Badlands, painting the cliffs in blood-red hues, as if the earth itself wept for her. Shouts echoed from the riverbank, her own people, the White Mountain Apache, turning their backs on the woman they once called daughter, sister, kin. The spirits demand strength, her uncle had growled, his voice thick with the weight of tradition. You are a shadow now, Ayana. The river will carry you to the great mystery. And so they had wheeled her to the edge in her crude wooden cart, lifted her like a discarded pelt, and cast her in. At 32, Ayana's life ended not with a warrior's cry, but with the silent betrayal of those who shared her blood. Or so she believed, until the thunder of hooves shattered the water's roar. Ayana had never known a world without pain. Born under a harvest moon in the shadow of the sacred peaks, she was the spark of her family's fire, her laughter a melody that danced through the hogans like wind through cottonwoods. Her father, a healer who whispered to the eagles, taught her the songs of the land, the way yucca roots could mend a wound, how the stars mapped paths for the lost. But when the sickness came at 8, ravaging her body like a coyote's bite, it left her legs lifeless, her spirit tethered to the earth. The tribe whispered of curses, of bad medicine from envious shamans. Her mother wove baskets in secret, trading them for bits of cloth to fashion a sling that carried Ayana on her back, but grief hollowed her eyes until she faded into the spirit world. Ayana learned to weave too, her fingers nimble as spider silk, crafting patterns that told stories of resilience, a warrior rising from ashes, a river bending but never breaking. As years turned to dust, the whispers grew to murmurs, then to decrees. The Apache way revered the strong, the hunters who felled deer with silent arrows, the women who birthed life amid the desert's cruelty. Ayana became a burden, her cart a reminder of weakness in a land that forgave none. She felt it in the averted gazes during council fires, the portions of venison doled out smaller each moon. Her uncle, now chief after her father's passing, hardened like sun-baked clay. The white man's sickness brought this, he said once, his words a venom arrow. And now the white man encroaches, stealing our waters, our hunts. We cannot falter. Ayana argued in the quiet hours, her voice a fierce wind, strength is not in legs that run, but in hearts that endure. But traditions were chains, forged in survival's fire, and the drought that withered the corn this season snapped them taut. On that fateful dawn, as the tribe broke camp near the river's bend, the decision came like a storm without rain. The elders gathered under the cottonwoods, their faces etched with the lines of famine and fear. Ayana, sensing the shift in the air like a deer sensed the hunter, wheeled herself to the circle's edge. What shadows gather here, she asked, her dark eyes piercing the veil of silence. Her uncle rose, his feathers rattling like dry bones. The river calls for the weak, Ayana. It is mercy, not cruelty. The Great Spirit will judge your soul, unburdened by flesh. Protests rose from the younger ones, her cousin Najoni, who had learned weaving at Ayana's knee, clutched her shawl and wept. But the elders' nod sealed it. They bound her wrists loosely, more for the cart's ease than restraint, and trundled her to the water's lip. As they lifted her, Ayana's heart cracked open, not in rage, but sorrow. I carried your stories in my hands, she whispered to the wind. Do not let them drown with me. Then the plunge, cold shock stealing her breath, the current a relentless thief dragging her toward the canyon's maw. Miles downstream, Elias Thorne rode his sorrel mare along the river trail, the weight of solitude heavier than his saddlebags. At 41, the cowboy was a ghost of the frontier himself, broad-shouldered, sun-leathered, with eyes the color of storm clouds that had seen too many sunsets alone. Born in a Texas soddy to a preacher father and a Comanche mother whose name he never spoke aloud, Elias straddled worlds like a man on a fault line. The Civil War had claimed his pa, the railroads his ma's stories, and gold fever the easy dreams of youth. Now, He trailed cattle for outfits that paid in dust and disdain, a half-breed wanderer who mended fences and buried regrets under wide skies. Kindness was his quiet rebellion. He'd once lost a herd to rustlers for stopping to pull a calf from a bog, and another time, his rifle to share jerky with a starving Navajo family. "Folks see what they wanna see," he'd mutter to his horse, Sage. "Ain't my job to blind 'em." But on this parched October eve, as the river's growl filled the arroyo, Elias saw something that pierced even his calloused soul, a figure thrashing in the foam, dark hair whipping like a signal fire. He spurred Sage without thought, the mare's hooves pounding earth into prayer. The river narrowed here, rocks jutting like Apache knives, and the woman was pinned against a boulder, her upper body clawing for purchase while the water battered her mercilessly. Elias slid from the saddle, boots sinking in mud, and waded in thigh-deep, the current yanking at his chaps like greedy hands. "Hold on, darlin'," he bellowed, his voice a Texas drawl laced with Comanche grit. She locked eyes with him, fierce, unyielding, the color of polished obsidian, and in that gaze, he glimpsed a lifetime of battles unspoken. Grabbing a low branch from the bank, he extended it like a lifeline, inching closer as the river roared its defiance. Her fingers, raw and trembling, clasped the wood, and with a heave that tore muscle from bone, Elias hauled her toward shore. They collapsed in a tangle of limbs and labored breaths, the canyon walls echoing their gasps like applause from the gods. Ayanna coughed river from her lungs, staring at this stranger, a white man, yet not, his braids hidden under a Stetson, his skin kissed by the same sun that scorched her people. "Why?" she rasped, her Apache tongue stumbling into broken English learned from traders. "You, risk for shadow?" Elias wiped mud from his face, offering a water skin from his belt. "Ain't no shadows in a fight worth watchin'. Name's Elias. And you got the fire of a Mustang in those eyes. What's a woman like you doin' in the devil's bathtub?" She hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion, then poured out her tale, the tribe's abandonment, the weight of tradition, the ache of being deemed unworthy. Elias listened, his jaw tightening not in pity, but recognition. "Seen it before," he said softly. "My ma's folk cast out the lame too, back when the buffalo ran thick. Thought it made 'em strong. All it did was carve hollows in the heart. He built a fire then, sparks flying like stars reclaimed, and fashioned a travois from saplings and his bedroll. Can't leave you to the buzzards. We'll find a way." But the way was thorned with unexpected barbs. As dusk bled into night, hoofbeats drummed the trail, her tribe, returning to scavenge what the river spared, only to find their offering alive, cradled by an outsider. Nijoni spotted them first, her cry splitting the air like an arrow. Uncle and 5 warriors crested the ridge, bows drawn, faces twisted in fury. "Thief of souls," her uncle thundered, mistaking Elias for a spirit-cursed interloper. "You mock the great mystery." Arrows whistled, one grazing Elias's arm, drawing blood like crimson ink. He shielded Ayanna with his body, drawing his Colt but not firing, years of frontier wisdom screaming that lead begot more lead. "Ain't stealin' nothin'," he shouted back. "Just givin' what your river tried to take. She's kin, same as you." The warriors advanced, but Ayanna's voice rose, clear as a canyon echo, "Stop. This man is no enemy. He sees what you have blinded yourselves to, strength in the unbroken spirit." A hush fell, broken only by the fire's crackle. Her uncle's eyes flickered, doubt cracking his resolve like dry earth under rain. In that suspended breath, Elias felt the world's weight shift. He could fight, spill blood for a stranger's sake, or walk away into the dark. But as Ayanna's hand found his, warm and steady despite the chill, a profound realization bloomed in his chest: humanity wasn't in the taking, but the holding on. "Listen to her," he said, voice low but iron true. "I ain't Apache, ain't white neither, just a man who's lost enough to know value when it's starin' me down. Cast her out if you must, but you'll be castin' out the best of yourselves." Nijoni stepped forward then, her young face alight with the courage Ayanna had woven into her. She taught me to see beauty in the bent reed, uncle.